Hello and a very warm welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now, property prices are sinking in Slovakia. According to the National Bank of Slovakia, year to quarter 2 2023, house prices in Bratislava fell by nearly 8% to an average of just under 3,150 euros per square metre. In Košice, Slovakia's second city, they fell by just over 10% to an average of around 2,100 euros per square metre. In other cities, the falls were more modest. Nevertheless, when you take into account inflation, these falls are huge. Slovakia has experienced very high inflation, which peaked at 15.4% at the end of 2022 and still stands at nearly 9% as of August 2023. So should you invest? In today's video, I will give you 5 reasons for and 5 reasons against investing in this property market, and then I will give you my conclusion at the end. So let's look at the 5 advantages. Number 1, prices have dropped, as said, significantly in real terms, and with prices having dropped so much, many would argue it's a good time to get back into this property market. Number 2, good economic figures. Over the last 10 years, GDP growth has been pretty good, ranging from 0.6% to 5.2%, other than the pandemic year where GDP fell by a fairly modest 3.3%. Now, Slovakia's unemployment rate is also very low at just under 4%, which is well below the EU average. And just think, 10 years ago, it was over 14%, so a massive improvement. And Slovakia's total government debt to GDP is also fairly low at around 58%, again lower than the EU average, although figures for countries like Bulgaria and Estonia are much lower. Number 3, the low buy-sell costs. Now, for properties more than 5 years old, the buy-sell costs are very low, on average around 5 to 6%. For newer property, you will have to include VAT of 20% in the price. And there are also very few restrictions on foreign ownership, namely agricultural land and forests. But other than that, a foreigner can buy apartments, houses and land quite freely. Number 4, I want to talk about stability and strategic location. Now, Slovakia is a very stable country in Europe. It's actually in the European Union, the Eurozone, and in NATO as well. It is also in a strategic location in Central Europe. Vienna is only an hour by bus from Bratislava, and Budapest and Prague are only 3 and 4 hours away respectively by train, and you can also easily get to Brno as well. I also want to add that Slovakia has a well-diversified economy and is very strong in electronics, auto and pharmaceutical industries. Number 5, Slovakia has quite low taxation. So taxes are generally low in Slovakia. There are no wealth taxes, there are no inheritance taxes or gift taxes, and property taxes are low as well. Rental income tax is 19% for income up to 38,553 euros, and above that it climbs to 25%. But bear in mind there are very good deductions for expenses, so this will make the figure much lower. And capital gains tax are also subject to this rate as well. But if you do keep the property for 5 years or more, actually above 5 years, you will pay no capital gains tax. So please do bear that in mind. That said, unfortunately, there are disadvantages as well. And let's give you 5 disadvantages. Number 1, prices are still quite expensive relative to local incomes. Although cities like Bratislava and Košice are not the worst in Europe, there are more affordable places for locals to buy in. And major cities I can think of where it's more affordable for locals are Bucharest, Sofia, Varna and Plovdiv. Number two, and this actually follows on from point one, many people compare property prices in Slovakia to Austria, in particular Bratislava to Vienna, and we can say Bratislava, the prices are much, much cheaper than Vienna, often 4 to 5 times cheaper. But that's an unfair comparison. You need to compare it to other cities like Sofia, like Budapest and Bucharest, where property prices are a fair bit cheaper than Bratislava. Number three, let's talk about the uninspiring gross yields. Now, in Bratislava, you're looking at below 4%, and in Košice, they are a bit better at around 5%, but not amazing. Even in other cities, yields are nothing really anything to write home about. So yields, even in other cities, are not spectacular. But certainly in Bratislava, where I think most of you may look to buy, gross yields are below 4%. Number four, Slovakia's GDP growth and higher debt. Let's talk about those. Although generally GDP growth has been good, in 2022 it only went up 1.7%, and it's expected that for 2023 the GDP growth will actually be even lower than 2022. So this also is not a great sign. And I've talked about the total government debt to GDP being quite low, and it is quite low. But back in 2019, it was actually even lower at 48%, and it's risen to just under 60%. So it's actually going in the wrong direction, even though it's much lower than Western European countries like the UK, Italy, Portugal, Spain, etc. And number five, I just want to talk briefly about corruption. Now, although, let's be fair to Slovakia, it's by no means anywhere near one of the most corrupt countries, but it does suffer from some corruption. And earlier in the year, Slovakia's central bank boss was convicted of bribery. So there is a bit of corruption as well, although I want to state again, there are countries, many countries, which are far more corrupt than Slovakia. So should you invest? Now, despite the price falls, I think that property prices could fall a bit further. It's still definitely not cheap to buy in, for example, Bratislava and Košice, where prices are over 3,000 euros and 2,000 euros per square meter, respectively. But even in smaller cities, they're not cheap. In both Žilina and Prešov, they are over 1,900 euros per square meter on average, which is a bit disappointing, I think, from the investor's point of view, because these prices are similar to places like Turin in Italy. And I think Turin has a bit more to offer than, for example, Žilina and Prešov. So I'm a little bit disappointed when I see these prices. Now, there is a city called Nitra, where property prices are much cheaper. So we are talking here under 1,500 euros per square meter on average. So I think potentially Nitra is a bit of a better place to put your money if you look in Slovakia, if you're looking for something just that little bit cheaper. Now, I think in the long term, Slovakia will do well when it comes to property, but I think for now, I wouldn't probably go into this market. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Are you thinking of investing in Slovakia? Do you think it's a good market? Or do you agree with me to stay out of it a bit longer and potentially invest in the future? Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I shall see you soon on the next video.